Who is a teacher, are sending their third child to Army basic training in the spring. Please give a warm welcome to Victor Nister Jr.
Hi.
Hey, Victor.
Just let you know, I'm a crier.
Me too.
So,
Here we go.
I do have a speech in between tears and explaining stuff. I am one of the deplorables. And Rosanna already said that I have the 3 children in the military. I'm supposed to talk about being an Army dad. It sucks. I tell you. You know, my oldest son's just finishing up his basic next week. He's done his Victory Forge and everything. And then my other son's girlfriend, she's going, or she gets out of boot camp 2 weeks after Vic does. So we've got a lot of traveling to do. And we also have a daughter that lives at home, and our granddaughter's over here with our grandma. Let's see. I've already threw up my whole speech here. I am worried about my kids. You know, it's a occupation. You know, they say firefighters and cops occupation is bad because, you know, we know firemen are nuts. When the rats are leaving the building, we're crawling into the building, and the cops go in the harm's way of people with guns and that kind of stuff. But our kids have jobs, they're getting paid, and, you know, going into harm's way is not something that a parent wants. It's rough. So, page 2. Being damp is making the paper stick. Let's see. They have jobs and they are serving our great country for jobs. They are learning skills and teamwork. I worry about them getting killed. It is a dangerous occupation, but we have kids that want to serve. This is why my son didn't come down. My son knew I'd be crying in front of everybody, so we understand the risk. It's the nature of the job, and we understand the risk. With the new administration, I have watched partners with world leaders be restored and respect again return to America at a global level. President Trump has spoken of empowering our military to do job they are there to do. President Trump said he wants to build our military and give them the best equipment and training. It is time to rebuild the Air Force, not tear it down. We've already had a lot of wings shut down, and I forgot the number, and I didn't have time to look it up, but the military, the Air Force has cut back on a lot of their air wings, and that just ain't cool. And then the Navy, they should have their 600 ships. You know, the Army shouldn't have more ships than the Navy. Figure that one out. Yeah, yes, it's nice having the great big aircraft carriers, but they need some of the smaller ones too. And you know, our military has been stripped to its bare bones in the last 8 years, you know, with, you know, rules of engagement. Hi, we're going to come over this week and bomb you, and then we're going to go home.
What an idiot.
Yeah, we don't do that. You go in and kill and beat the gun and come home. And we need just to rebuild it, and, you know, for the world peace is peace through a strong military.
That's right.
You know, when we're weak and let the Russians and the Chinese fly on our coast and stuff, that ain't cool.
It is not.
So it's like, that has to stop.
Amen.
They need to get our soldiers too, actually all our military, basic things like socks, blankets, gloves, toilet paper. Kids in boot camp are asking their parents for toilet paper. What the heck is that? That is totally wrong. They should have toilet paper in the military. So, I'll talk slow on this one. There's a website that we go to and we adopt different companies and soldiers. It's called anysoldier.com.
Got it.
Got it?
Yep, I got it.
And we send stuff, we send care packages and everything at Christmas, and like when at the end of the Christmas season, we go to Walmart and fill our cart up with ornaments and all that stuff, and we send it off around Christmas time so they have a little bit of home. And if you go on there, they'll say what they're looking for, like toilet paper, Keurig machines, Keurig coffee, you know, and socks, underwear, blankets, pillows, and stuff like that. Because over there in Iraq and all those places, it does get cold there in the winter. So go on that and send something to them. In fact, my son's recruiters, we've adopted him. He's shipped off to Korea. And he's sending us his address once he gets totally settled there. And he's an artillery commander for one of the batteries. And we're going to send him some, you know, Santa hats and a whole bunch of other stuff. And he's going to share it with his men. So it's like, how cool is that, you know?
Say it again.
It's anysoldier.com. And it's really cool, because there's a whole list. All the branches are listed. And like the last one that we sent stuff to, they let us know when they were coming home and everything. And they sent us pictures with our care boxes and everything, which was pretty cool. And then, let's see, President Trump said he wants to stop illegals from coming into our country.
You hit it.
He wants to stop the undocumented aliens because they're illegal.
They're illegal. Not undocumented.
They are breaking the law. This threatens our system of laws as well as our national security. He has promised to restore law and respect those who are defending it. If it wasn't so damp out here, the papers would come apart.
All right, you're doing great.
Thank you. America was built on immigrants. My dad's family came here from Romania. My great-grandma Banks would tell the family. Now everybody that doesn't speak English, listen to this. We are Americans now, and we speak American. They came through Ellis Island and moved to Indiana, then Illinois. So I am a second-generation Romanian. But my dad would tell me, Grandma Banks they'd all gather around, and the kids would read the newspapers and make all the other family members that came over to speak English. And it was hard understanding my grandma because she did speak broken English, but I got it. You know, that's all that counted.
There you go.
And their farm, I was the only one that my grandpa would let in the barn. None of the other grandkids, only me. So I just kept my mouth shut, so that was cool. Since then, the world has lost respect for the United States and what we represent, our values, our Constitution, our laws. Our country has been chaotic, has seen chaotic moments in recent years. Even Americans trample on these. In the past few months, however, we have witnessed a return back to respect for these and those who defend this. This is a renewal sense of patriotism. That's why we're all here.
Yeah, that's right.
Our laws, our values, and our Constitution are being restored. It is a demonstration like this. We are publicly showing our thanks to our servicemen, women, veterans, and first responders. They are the ones on the front lines for America, and we thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is one of the things my son didn't want me to throw in here. In closing,
There you go.
I'd like to say to the snowflakes and never Trumpers,
Yeah.
put down the hot chocolate, the crayons, get out of your designated safe places, and make America great again.
Thank you so much.
Hey, at least your grandma tried.
She tried.
She tried, put in the effort to learn English.
All right, we're so honored to have our next guest. He is He came here all the way from Mount Morris, Illinois, which is up towards Rockford. He's a Silver Star recipient, and his name is Doug Wien. Doug Wien was born and raised in northwestern Illinois in a small community of Mount Morris in Ogle County, just south of Rockford. He enlisted in the U.S. Navy while a senior in high school under a delayed entry program. He was a graduate of the Navy's Hospital Corps School at the Naval Hospital, Great Lakes, Illinois. He received orders and attended the Field Medical Service School in North Carolina for medical and amphibious training with the 2nd Marine Division. He received orders to the U.S. Naval Hospital in Portsmouth, Virginia, and was assigned to the Orthopedic Services Department. In August of 1967, he received orders to join the 9th Marine Amphibious Brigade of the 3rd Marine Division in Okinawa for further Marine Corps training. He was a graduate of the Marine Corps' Counter, Guerrilla, and Jungle Survival School at the Northern Training Center in Okinawa. Doug arrived in Vietnam in January 1968, attached to the elements of the 3rd Marine Division in the Northern I Corps of the DMZ during the Tet Offensive of 1968. He participated in the following Marine Corps operations: Thor, Buffalo, Scotland II, Neapolitan Saline, and Marmaduke Thrust. On September 19, 1968, while near the Marine outpost called Rockpile, his Marine platoon came under heavy rocket artillery and small arms fire. Initially, there were 13 Marines wounded. In March of 1969, while stationed at the Naval Hospital in Great Lakes, he was awarded the Silver Star Medal for Gallantry in Action and the Purple Heart Medal for his service at Rockpile. He was honorably discharged from the Navy in February 1971 and took a position at the Edward Hines Jr. VA Medical Center in Chicago. He is retired from federal service for 36 years. He is an officer and member of American Legion Post 143 in Mount Morris, Illinois, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 8735 in Oregon, Illinois, the Marine Corps League in Dixon, Illinois, the Military Order of the Purple Heart, and the 3rd Marine Division Association, Quantico, Virginia. And if you will all indulge me, I would like to read you a citation from the President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Silver Star Medal to Hospital Corpsman 3rd Class Douglas Lewis Wien, United States Navy, for service as set forth in the following: for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action while serving as a corpsman with Battery K, 4th Battalion, 5th Marines, 9th Marine Amphibious Brigade, in connection with operations against the enemy in the Republic of Vietnam. On the morning of September 19th, 1968, while occupying a fire support position at the Rockpile in Quang Tri Province, Petty Officer Wien's platoon came under heavy fire of North Vietnam artillery and small arms. During that, the attack ensued Several rounds impacted the powder storage area, wounding numerous Marines and igniting an intense fire that spread through the platoon area. Responding instantly to the call for medical assistance, Petty Officer Wien unhesitatingly left his position of cover and rushed out across the fire-swept terrain to aid the wounded comrades, ignoring the fragmentation of exploding ordnance and enemy small arm fires aimed at the impacting near him. He shielded the wounded Marine with his own body while calmly administering medical care to the casualty. When the wounded Marine was evacuated from the field of fire, Petty Officer Wien fearlessly extracted from the combat area. His heroic actions and sincere concern for the welfare of his comrades inspired all who observed him and was instrumental in saving the lives of 2 Marines. By his courage, resolute determination, and steadfast devotion to duty in the face of great personal danger, Petty Officer Wien upheld the highest traditions of the United States Marine Corps and the United States Naval Service. And this was given to him from the President. And would you please help me welcome Douglas Wien. We saved the rain for you, dear.
Hey, how you doing? It's good to be down here from Northern Illinois. And I was called and asked if I would say a few words about veterans today, and I'd like to do that. I'd like to share an experience with you that's been with me for over 50 years, and you might find the story interesting. It was July 31st, 1968, and I was one of 2 Navy hospital corpsmen attached to a Marine Rifle Company in combat in the northern DMZ area of Vietnam. I was 20 years old, and my home of record was Mount Morris, Illinois.
God bless you.
We were told that we were going to move out early the next morning to a remote area that was located near a small village called Mylock in Quang Tri Province. Our convoy left at 4 a.m. in the morning and consisted of 3 jeeps, 4 trucks full of Marines, and we were told that the road had been cleared of mines, but the engineer had received small arms fire as they swept through the area the day before. So be careful, they said. This is going to be a hot area. We came to the small village, and there was a small river with a planked bridge over it. Our commanding officer decided we wouldn't cross the bridge. Instead, we would ford the river about 15 yards to the west of the bridge. When our convoy hit the water, our lead jeep was blown 15 feet in the air with a huge explosion followed by enemy machine gun fire aimed at us. When I reached the remnants of the jeep, and the 3 Marines that were in it were moaning with critical wounds that they had received. Lieutenant David Hopkins was one of our officers. He was critically wounded. His left shoulder and arm were barely there. They were just hanging, and the left side of his face was gone. And I worked arduously to control the breathing and provide an airway. He was trying to talk, and I told him to be quiet. He was going home. He kept trying to talk, and as I listened, I leaned over him, and I finally understood what he was saying. He was saying, "Help me, God. Help me, God." And I whispered, "God is here, Lieutenant." We medevaced him to the USS Repose, a hospital ship in the Gulf of Tonkin, and then I attended to the other wounded. Life simply just goes on in combat. Lieutenant David Hopkins died that day, September 1st, 1968, 49 years ago this year. It was 1985 and my wife and I had decided to take the trek to the wall in D.C. It was 38 years after I had been in Vietnam. We held hands as we searched the shaved granite for all my comrades. Bear with me. As we were leaving the wall, there was a kiosk there, and it was called In Touch, and it allowed combat veterans from the Vietnam War to get in touch with those that they served with. And I filled out a card for David Hopkins. And I just put on the card that we served together in Vietnam. 17 years later, the phone rang in Chicago, and I picked it up, and it was his sister. And a friend had been to visit the wall, and they found my card there, and she said, "You gotta call this guy, he served with your brother." So she said to me, "I think you served with my brother in Vietnam, David Hopkins." And I could barely talk. I said, "Yeah, I was there." And she cried. And she had told me that she was 10 years old when the two Marines had come to the front door and told her mom and her that her brother had been killed. And they quickly called her dad, who was a civilian, his dad, who was a civilian employee of the Pentagon. And they came home. She said to me, "Was he hurt badly?" And I said, "Yes, he was." And she said, "Could he talk?" And I said, "Well, I heard him saying, 'Help me, God,' several times." And she started crying. We talked for over an hour. And then she asked me if it would be okay if her parents called me and would I talk with them. And I said it would be fine. When I hung up the phone, I told my wife that I had lied to her. She had asked me how David looked that day, and I said he looked okay, just like David. My wife said, "That's a beautiful lie. You stick with it when you talk to his parents." So I called the parents. And they called me an hour later, and Dave's parents were both on phone extensions and seemed joyous to talk to me. I told them the same things I told his sister Joyce, and then David's mom asked me about what he had said. And I told her, and there was a long pause, and this was her response. What a comfort it is for us to know that he talked to God in his last breath. The only reason we have survived this has been our faith in God. And then she asked me how he looked. I said he looked fine. And she told me that the mortician would not allow them to open the casket. And I understand why. His upper body was decimated. And she seemed so pleased that she could put a face on that casket that was brought back with her son. I was the only person that Dave's parents and sister had talked to in those 30 years since he had died. He was born August 14th, 1945 in Washington, D.C. His father was a civilian employee at the Pentagon following World War II. They moved to Pittsburgh, and like all of that area, began pursuing the American dream. Sister Joyce described their childhood as idyllic, perhaps much like we remember our childhood in the 50s and 60s. It's kind of wet up here, guys. He graduated from the University of Pittsburgh. Can you hear me? You might have lost power over there.
Yeah. I think we did.
Oh. No?
Hey, I can help. I knew I brought this for a reason.
Megaphone?
I can come right down. Well, let me see if they can hear me here. I'm about done.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you, dear.
Thank you, Liberty.
He graduated from Marine Corps Officer Candidate School in March of 1968. Survived 6 months of service. He was simply dedicated to serving his country. When called, he was a volunteer. In 1969, a memorial fund was begun at his church, Heritage Presbyterian Church in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in David's name. In 1975, the Hopkins received a letter from the church trustees, and it said, with your approval, we would like to build a simple but permanent chapel in the woodsy area between the church and the cemetery where David's buried, to be named the Lieutenant David L. Hopkins Memorial Chapel. In June 1978, the Heritage Church newsletter said that the entire congregation proceeded down the hill for the dedication of the newly completed chapel in the woods in the name of Lieutenant David Hopkins, United States Marine Corps. David Sr., David's dad, Melva, his mother, his sister Joyce, her husband and children, and David's aunts and uncles and friends were all there. In July of 1998, my company held its annual Marine Corps reunion in Washington, D.C.